It's opening week, and today on Locked On Twins, it's time to ask what's next for Bailey Ober. So sit back, buckle up, and get comfortable. Locked On Twins starts now.
You are Locked On Twins, your daily Minnesota Twins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome again to Locked On Twins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Brandon Warren, and you can find me on Twitter at Brandon_WARNE. And today, on take 2, we're going to talk about what's next for Bailey Ober. Now, before I talk about what take 2 actually means, we'd love to have you hang out in the comments with us in YouTube. In iTunes, give us a 5-star review, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you can review us. We would love to have that happen. But if you're watching on YouTube, feel free to leave comments in the section below, and I will come hang out. We'll chat a little bit about your local 9 and have some fun. Also, too, if you have questions for the third segment of the show, got a couple more shows with those before the regular season starts. Send them to me on Twitter, email, even got a couple via text for this episode. So should be a lot of fun. Now, before we get into it, today's show is brought to you by Ultimate Baseball GM. Have you ever dreamed of becoming an MLB GM and managing your baseball franchise? Well, if that's the case, then this game is definitely for you. To download the game, just visit ultimatebaseballgm.com or look in the App Store on your phone, and you can find the game that will give you a 100% free boost if you use the promo code Locked On. That's all in caps and one word. Again, this is a really great time for games to be coming out on different platforms, MLB The Show, OOTP, all kinds of different things. This one is going to be right up your alley if you enjoy those, but on your phone, so it can be played a little more on the mobile side. But again, that's Ultimate Baseball GM. You can find it at ultimatebaseballgm.com. In the app stores, make sure to use promo code Locked On today. So I say this is the second take because I, in my infinite wisdom, recording this show this morning, did so without my microphone on. We have confirmed that the microphone is on, embarrassment incurred, and so on and so forth. But we have a lot to get to today, so let's not waste any time. Bailey Ober headed to St. Paul. It looks as though the Twins are going to roll with Cole Sands on the front end of the bullpen and a 5-man pitching rotation. Again, to the rest of the moves over the last couple days, Aaron Sanchez, Jose De Leon, Danny Coulombe, and Jeff Hoffman sent over to the minor league side. In the meantime, Danny Coulombe was traded to the Orioles for cash. Jeff Hoffman was released. And Kyle Garlick was sent to the minor league side too. So he'll probably hang around, maybe help the team if they need some help from the right side in the outfield at some point this season. Now, I'm not surprised necessarily with these guys getting moved over, with Willi Castro being needed on the offensive side. The open 40-man spot vacated by Dennis Santana is going to go to him, meaning that there's just not room on the 40 for these guys. I don't have any inside information, but I wonder if it's possible that Hoffman could be back on another deal, sort of like the Brewers did with Luke Voit, where they released him and brought him back. I think there's some kind of little quirk in the rules that allows that to be a little different. So unless Hoffman lands a big league job somewhere else, knock on wood, maybe he could be in the cards to return to the Twins. But we'll see what happens there. But that's not what we're here to talk about right now. Bailey Ober. So it's hard to not feel bad for Bailey Ober. He pitched his butt off this spring. He's been way better than any of us could have expected as a major league starter. 3.8 ERA, strikeout per inning, just about. But again, the dynamic at play here is having options. Players having options versus not. The out of options player almost always wins. In this case, though, it's Kenta Maeda, who's not only not a recipient of options anymore, but he's in his mid-30s and basically coming down the home stretch of his career in his final year under contract with the Twins. The thing that fans don't like with this option thing is you go to the veteran, let them fail, the kid takes over. And we've seen the Twins do that with Sidney Ponson, Tony Batista, Juan Castro with Jason Bartlett there. The thing is, you can go to the veteran and let the kid take the job because you can't really do vice versa due to roster maneuvering, players out of options, et cetera, et cetera. It's like if you go with the hot shot fifth starter, where do you keep that veteran in the meantime? Is it the bullpen and they're not stretched out? Is it you can't send them to the minor leagues? If you cut them, they're as good as gone. So if you go into a season with, let's say, Bailey Ober as your fifth starter and he struggles a month in, you don't have the option to go get that veteran unless you trade for one, which is easier said than done. And two, free agency, there's really nobody left. It's all picked over. And so you then just go deeper into your minor league system as opposed to starting with a big league vet and then moving your way down the ladder. So as much as people don't like it, it's very, very common for this to happen. Now, Cole Sands gets the last spot in the bullpen. I think they're going to need probably a little bit of more depth behind Kenta Maeda, with him being a pretty big wild card as far as how many innings and pitches and all that stuff he's going to throw this year. And I think the Twins felt that Ober just was not equipped to be that guy. And that makes sense to me. Sands' prospect status or his standing in the organization is not quite as high as Ober's. So if they were going to tweak someone's workload, it would not only be the guy that's kind of lower on the organizational list, but also the guy that worked in the role last season. So if it comes down to it that Maeda needs to be replaced in the rotation, I think they'll probably have Ober kind of in that spot, roughly speaking, in the St. Paul rotation, which is, they open on Friday, so the day after the Twins in Toledo. So it won't be hard to keep those two guys on a similar schedule. But, as far as Ober going down to the minor leagues, it's, again, you feel bad for him because he's done everything he could to earn this spot. But good big league teams need to roll deep. And, as much as it is, you feel kind of locked into those first five starters every year. If we take a look at last year's Twins, they used, let's see here, a total of, sorting here, 14 players made at least one start, 9 made at least 5, and 7 made at least 10. So to roll 7 deep in your rotation is far from a crime. It's far from an issue. It's actually a good thing. So having Bailey Ober as depth, having Louis Varland as depth, Simeon Woods Richardson, whatever they get out of Cole Sands, maybe someone like Josh Winder, another option in that mix. They rolled deep like that, I believe, in 2019 as well, where the contingencies were Randy Dobnak and Lewis Thorpe. Again, you want to be in that spot where you've got a few guys who can be sent back and forth to AAA, but give you more than just the bare minimum in the rotation. So, yeah, as far as the wrap on Bailey Ober, I think we'll see him sooner rather than later. But with this start to the season being games on, games off, games on, games off, the Twins probably won't even need a fifth starter theoretically until mid-April, which will allow them kind of either bop around in the rotation, give Maeda a little more time off. But nevertheless, it didn't make sense to go to 6 starters with Ober in that mix, and they very clearly didn't want to put him out in the bullpen. So hopefully Ober doesn't. I'm sure he's going to be a consummate professional, take this on the in stride, go down to St. Paul, do what he has to do, and be back real quick. Also, too, I believe I heard that Louis Varland will start the opener for the Saints, so that's going to be kind of cool as well. Let's do this. Let's talk about ProBaseballGM.com again. If you haven't downloaded this game onto your phone yet, you really need to. It's so much fun. You get to pretend you're a GM. You get 100% free boost just by putting in the promo code Locked On in all caps in the game store. So you can download it on their website. You can go on your app store on your phone, and it's going to be a little less immersive than OTP, but still very, very fun. And I think if you enjoy baseball games of any sort, you'll really enjoy it. Now let's get into segment 2. Got a little quick Jorge Polanco update. He was scheduled. There we go. To face live Twins pitching today in front of Twins staff before everybody departed for Kansas City. Have not heard yet how that went, but obviously encouraging to see that he's maybe a little closer than previously thought. Jose Miranda has a massive game while in the middle of the game, telling Glenn Perkins he's ready. Great to see Miranda Not looking too rusty over at third base too, especially since he hasn't played that much this spring with a balky shoulder. So that looked good. We saw Edouard Julien sprain his ankle on the first base bag, the big bag there against the Pirates on yesterday. We'll see if he's ready in time for the opener for St. Paul on March 31st. So that will be something worth monitoring, especially for a guy who could find his way onto the roster sooner rather than later if things go sideways at second base. Danny Coulombe gone to the Orioles for cash. Nothing really surprising there. Twins just not wanting to open up a roster spot by either 60-daying Matt Cantorino and starting his service clock, or any other sort of thing, maybe DFAing Trevor McGill, which to me wouldn't make much sense. Hoffman released. Again, we'll see what that means. I'm kind of hoping, though, that it means maybe he finds his way back to the Twins on a minor league deal after kind of scoping out the rest of the landscape of the major leagues. We saw Luke Voigt get released or waived, whatever, come back to the Brewers on a 1-year deal. So there's a specific rule about player contracts and all that makes it make sense for a vet to opt out and then come back at this point of year. At this point of before the season starts, I'm not positive on what that rule is. I think it's something about retention bonuses and that sort of thing. But again, knock on wood, maybe there's a chance Jeff Hoffman comes back to the team. Willi Castro is going to get the last spot on the 40-man roster vacated by Dennis Santana. Basically, I think it came down to if Jorge Polanco was healthy, someone like Jeff Hoffman would have made the team, which sounds weird. But if you don't need that extra infielder and you subtract Dennis Santana from your 40, you have room for someone like Jeff Hoffman. And so we'll keep an eye if he does find his way somewhere else that, see how he pitches. I'm sure there will be plenty of people wanting to tell me if he blows up somewhere else because the Twins had to roster Willi Castro. So we'll see how that goes. Looks as though Joey Gallo has been playing a bunch of first base leading off against right-handed pitching. So that's going to be kind of fun to see what that means as a domino effect in left field, which I suspect is Trevor Larnach's job to lose. And, anything that gets Larnach into the lineup against right-handed pitching has to be considered a positive. I'll be curious to see how Joey Gallo handles first base and two, how he handles hitting the top of the order, which I think a lot of people are going to dislike because of all the strikeouts, but he sees a ton of pitches, takes a bunch of walks. It's a curious strategy to be sure. I don't want to, knock anybody who's skeptical of it, but the other, outside of on-base percentage, kind of the other finer points of batting leadoff as far as seeing pitches and all that, I'm hopeful that actually holds as much value as they kind of tend to think, and that will help guys hitting second, third, fourth, get a better feel for what, for instance, Zach Greinke is throwing on opening day. So that's what we got here for our second spot here. And so let's do this. We got a lot of listener questions for the final segment, but let's talk about the Built Bar. You go BuiltBar.com, use the promo code LOCKEDON15. You'll get 15% off your next order. This tastes like a candy bar. I am strictly going based on what I've been told because I'm still waiting for my first shipment, but there are a ton of flavors. I've only ever heard good things. Talking to other Locked On hosts, you have these different things and you ask each other how they are and they're going to give you the truth. So everybody I've talked to just raves about these. A protein bar that basically tastes like a candy bar. So go to BuiltBar.com and put in the promo code LOCKEDON15 to get 15% off your next order. Let's go to our final segment, the listener questions, and we appreciate these very, very much. First, we have Richie5950, and this is the kind of a funny one, but we won't spend much time on it. If you were a hot dog and you were starving, would you eat yourself? I would say half. Is that a cop-out? I don't know. I'd say I'd eat halfway. We don't have to go all the way to the end, and then we still get to hang around. So, strange question. John Lano wants to know, what is your ideal 2024 infield against righties or lefties? So, the funny thing is, since I recorded this show earlier today with the sound off, I actually have been more prepared for these questions. And what we went with here was Jose Miranda at first, Brooks Lee at second, Royce Lewis at third, and Carlos Correa at shortstop. And I just think I kind of like the athleticism of Lewis at third a little more than at second. In this instance, Alex Kirilloff probably goes to the outfield with Max Kepler out of the picture. Possible Jorge Polanco's out of the picture with his option or being traded. So as much as it sounds weird that I don't have Kirilloff in there, it's not because I don't believe in him, but because I think he either DHs or goes to the outfield, with the Twins going with more of a dynamic defensive infield. So again, Miranda at first, Brooks Lee at second, Carlos Correa at short, and Royce Lewis at third. I don't know why it took me a second to remember where I was going with that. So I think, in lefty-righty, probably not much of a change there. Scopey Scope wants to know what he should know about Danny Coulombe. So this is actually a friend who is an Orioles fan, based on the name you can tell. Scopey Scope, former Twins and Orioles infielder Jonathan Scope is the reason why that name exists. And with Coulombe, I mean, he's a decent lefty. He probably won't get real big outs for the Orioles this year, but he can come in, take care of lefties especially. Has more of a starter's repertoire in the sense that he throws a number of different pitches. I think I saw 4 last time I checked on Fangraphs for last season, granted small sample size alert, but he doesn't throw the fastball that much. It's not a big fastball anyway. So he'll keep guys off balance and be a decent reliever. I just wouldn't expect that he'll be getting, outs in the 8th inning of wins, which all the other outs still matter. So our old friend Devlin wants to know, do you see the Twins loading up at shortstop? They have 7 if you include Correa in the bigs and minors as a way to facilitate a big trade, or just taking guys able to play other positions? And it's basically the second one. I mean, sure, they may be able to trade Salas, or I don't think they're going to trade Brooks Lee, but getting Salas in the Arise trade, anytime you get shortstop prospects, you get them with the idea that they can become other position players based on either growing out of the position, looking better defensively someplace else, or the rare one that sticks, which obviously you hope for. But it's just like any other up the middle talent. There's catchers, shortstops, and center fielders. Center fielders become left and right fielders. Shortstops become everything. And then catchers can move around too. Justin Morneau was drafted as a catcher, wound up being a first baseman. Joe Nathan, drafted as a shortstop, ends up being a pitcher and then a closer. It's just more loading up on the premier positions. Certainly a trade could be in play at some point. But again, as I've said about trade deadline stuff now, it's just so unclear what that would even mean, because you don't know what the Twins' needs are by the time trade season comes. So, I see it more as just stockpiling. Prime Correa wants to know if we think there'll be more success with certain guys working with Pete Mackey over a full season and the off season. Or do I think the change between him and Wes Johnson wasn't that big? I think it had to do with when it came in the season, and the Twins pride themselves on like an organizational structure of synergy and everybody kind of on a level, so that if one piece is pulled out, you still have plenty of support in that system. They don't want to have anybody be so important that they can't be replaced, which maybe sounds a little sinister, but it's more along the lines of that they can pick up and not really drop off when something like the Wes Johnson situation that happened last year happens. Now, part of it, you look at the data and it says, the Twins pitchers pitched worse under Pete Mackey, but in some respects, you had to expect regression from Chris Archer down the stretch, Dylan Bundy down the stretch, even Joe Ryan throwing more innings than he really has in the past. If it were to get more difficult down the season with any pitcher late in the season, the numbers are probably going to trend a little upward. So it's possible that it's maybe a little unfair to grade Pete Mackey on that basis. But at the same time, I think it can only help. Guys like Cole Sands and Louis Varland and any of the other young guys he's going to work with and have a little more time with. With the veteran guys, I think pitching coaches are more like the psychology experts for them, helping them kind of work through some things here or there. But it's more foundational with the younger guys. So I really do think that we'll see a difference. To what extent, I don't know we'll even be really able to quantify it, but I think you will see some sort of effect, and it might just end up being players talking about it in news stories in July if the team is in first place or that sort of thing. But in my heart of hearts, yes, I believe there will be more success with guys getting more time with Pete Mackey because, it's just a familiarity thing. Devlin also wants to know, what's the chance that at the end of Correa's contract in 2029, he's still the team's starting shortstop? 0. I'm going to say it's absolutely 0, just because that's a long time, man. And not only is it a long time, but they're going to run through a lot of different shortstop types in the meantime, even ones that we don't know right now because they're only in 9th grade. That's just how far into the future this all is. So I would say it's 0%, and it's not because I think his ankle is that much of a problem or anything to that effect. It's just that far into the future, things are bound to change more than you or I could even imagine. Jacob Larson wants to know, what roster decisions most surprised you for the better or the worst? And I think Cole Sands making the team is a surprise. Willi Castro making the team is a surprise. But it also speaks to the fact that when we project a roster at the end of a season, in the middle of a season, for the next season, and then even 2 weeks ago, you're not projecting a lot of these guys on the team because there's just still so much you don't know. Willi Castro makes the team because Jorge Polanco is injured. Without that, he's in St. Paul waiting for his chance, waiting for someone to either get hurt or traded or any number of things. But again, that's how you roll with the punches, and that's why you stockpile as much depth as you can. I mean, having a Willi Castro, who had quite a bit of success in the big leagues in 2020, but just ultimately has big league experience, having those guys stashed at AAA is good. It's very, very important, because this is nothing to slight like a Jermaine Palacios or anything like that, but I think you're better off with a Willi Castro than a Jermaine Palacios, in the sense that they're going to come up and not be, have their head underwater. Excuse me. So, I think it just kind of also Hernan Perez, another type where big league experience may not be the greatest player, but again, you're going to be able to fall back on somebody who's seen a lot of things and is not going to be surprised coming up in the big leagues in a big spot. We saw those big spots with the Twins against the Guardians last year, and the Twins were ill-prepared with Tyler Thornburg, Jarrell Cotton, and that sort of thing. So not the same situation, but the same idea of just have that added protection. So those two roster decisions were surprising. Not rostering Jeff Hoffman, somewhat surprising, but at the end of the day, he was a minor league deal, didn't pitch amazing for the Reds. He was pretty good for the Reds last year and then got hurt. The stuff looked good this spring as far as velo. So I'm surprised he didn't make it, but not so much that I'm going to, grab a tar and pitchforks or anything like that. The next one is one of two that came through in a text. And actually this one, our old friend Ryan Turnquist probably doesn't even know that we're going to use this, but he actually messaged me about 5 minutes after I asked somebody else this. Bailey Ober for Gleyber Torres, who says no? And I say both teams, but not because it's not a fair deal or a good deal. I haven't looked on the vaunted MLB trade values website to see how this matches up. Frankly, I don't care. I know Bailey Ober has pretty good value on there. I just think the Twins are not in such a need for a second baseman. He's not really a shortstop, that they would trade their number 6 starter for that. Now, if Polanco was going to be out for months, I mean, even still, you've stockpiled all this depth, and Torres is a really nice player, but at some point, maybe you give Nick Gordon that shot just on a longer-term basis, or you wait for Brooks Lee rather than trading for Torres. And the Yankees need pitching with basically everybody under the sun battling something. Rodon's dinged up, Severino's dinged up. So it would make sense, but I think neither team would see it as what they're really looking to do right now. So fair trade, but probably not not a fit for either side. And then good friend Corey wants to know, in 3 weeks, if all the lefties are hitting. Let's say Larnach and Gallo and Kepler, hitting healthy, so on and so forth. What happens when Alex Kirilloff is eventually ready? And again, good problem to have. Obviously, too many lefty hitters, especially if they're hitting well. But I'm wondering too. Polanco's got to come back into that equation. Buxton is likely to be DHing more often than not, if not full time. So that doesn't really open up any outfield spot for Kirilloff, other than, maybe Joey Gallo goes into center and Michael Taylor plays less. There's some mixing and matching and moving that they can do, but really Castro, as far as people on the bench to start the season, is really going to be the only movable one. Nick Gordon's probably going to start at second. Kyle Farmer and Donovan Solano are basically, mainstays, veterans, vested veteran type guys. So, knock on wood, you hope you have that problem. Chances are you don't. We spend a lot of time in the spring coming up with the perfect 26 guys. Then a couple slip in there. A couple of them come off the roster due to injuries like Kirilloff and Polanco. Honestly, I'm not putting too much thought into it, and it's not a cop-out. It's not trying to be evasive about the question. But if that happens, the Twins will welcome it. Let's just say that. Now, today's question for the road. I told you this Twins team was going to win 92 games. And I told you this before we had clarity on the Kirilloff situation, the Polanco situation, the Buxton situation. 1 out of 3 still ain't bad. I'm sticking to 92, but I want to know, how many wins do you think the Twins are going to have this season in 2023? I think the Twins are going to go 92-70. I saw our friend of the program, Lavelle Neal, said he thinks they're going 91-71. So we're not completely out of left field with our 92 win prediction. But what do you say? Where are they going to finish in the division? How many wins? How many losses? How many games back if they don't win the division? I want to know. But with that said, that is a wrap for this episode of Locked On Twins. Thank you for hanging out, and make sure that you follow Locked On Twins, Locked On Min, M-I-N, and at Brandon_Warren, as well as you can subscribe to us on any podcast provider, YouTube, wherever. 5-star reviews if possible. Hang out with us in the chat and send us questions for the final segment each day. Now, with that said, this is Brandon Warren signing off, saying thank you so much. And don't forget to stop by tomorrow to Locked On Twins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.